Vanessa, good to see you again. Welcome back to Pop Alternative.
Yes, thank you.
Season twos are interesting, right? Because it's equal playing field for everyone for season one, because you've never played these characters before. As viewers, we've never seen these characters. So what's that like kind of returning for a season two? Are you more kind of comfortable? Are you still learning? What's that like specifically?
I feel like you're always still learning with the character, but it's definitely more comfortable. Like, okay, wow, people actually liked what I did. So I guess that's good. So I'm just going to keep going with it and keep, adding depth to this character and growing with this character. So yeah, and just, the fans, we get such a good response and getting 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and all of that. So I think we all just have more of a confidence going into the next season and maybe playing with the rules a bit more.
Absolutely. It's really cool because one of the things I love about wildcards, and I think this show does a really good job about this too, is, procedural show. So every episode, it's kind of like new characters come in, new cases, then we move on to the next. But there's also kind of storylines with characters that continue throughout the whole season. Talk about that balance, that ping pong match of like the week to week storylines, but the ones that kind of consistently stay throughout the season. Because I find that interesting. You did that in Riverdale as well, but I'm just wondering about that because I find that really interesting.
Yeah, that's always really fun. Like we always know, we always know each episode there's going to be a mystery to solve, which I find kind of cool. It keeps it fresh. Like what's going to happen this episode? What are we going to have to solve? So I love that. But then I also like the consistency of building the relationships, like, the underlying Giacomo, his brother, who killed his brother. Yeah. We're always going to try to find that. Max and Ellis, their underlying dynamic of will they, won't they, that stays consistent throughout the season. So I love the consistency of having those couple storylines, but then also the excitement for the audience of adding a new element each episode as well.
It's interesting too because it's kind of like that week to week kind of drop and that who done it and like the kind of the detective watching it as the audience member. You've been on shows where they have the week to week drops, and you've been on the shows where all the episodes drop at once. From a viewer perspective, do you think like I feel like there's a room for both of them, but like, do you have one that you prefer specifically, the week to week drops, like the binge drops where they all drop at once?
Oh, I think when they all drop at once.
Pardon me?
I like when they all drop at once.
Yeah, but I think there's a way for both. There's something though about with wild cards. Every week they all drop. Week to week they each drop, and it's like you have kind of conversations and you look forward to something the next week. There's something about the week to week
that is exciting. I think just the culture these days, we've gotten so used to like binging and going that I do like it when it's like that. But like, or if they did like five drops, like or like half, they split it. I kind of like when shows split it, and then you get that excitement. Ooh, when's it going to come the next half?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely they do the week by week, which is cool. But me myself as a viewer, I like binging when I'm watching.
Yeah, no, totally. It's interesting too because I'm a filmmaker as well, and I feel like I put my my creative hat on when I ask this question. But it's like, what is also that like kind of reading the scripts for season like 2 of Wildcards and actually seeing it come to life on screen, so to speak? Like, do you feel like there's a lot that kind of happens between like reading it and actually going and filming it? Does it come out like the way you kind of feel it's going to look? Like, what is that like for you, that script to screen journey?
I feel like the show's pretty good about it coming out the way it's how you read it, which is really cool because sometimes it doesn't translate that way.
Yep.
We don't have much prep time. I will say that on this show, it's very, very fast moving. We're filming 5 episodes at the same time, different storylines, but I'm always happy with like how they did it when it actually airs. And also, I think the most exciting part for me is seeing who they cast as the characters after reading it. I think that's the fun part. That's the magic. And they always do a really good job of finding people that suit the paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Season 1 had some really cool guest stars. Season 2 has some really cool guest stars. Season 1, Ashley Green was on it. This season, we're going to look forward to seeing Martin Sheen, NXT superstar Tony D'Angelo. What's that like when the guest stars come in, like for the table reads and everything? What's that like specifically?
We did a lot of virtual table reads this season, so I would say more so when we're on set. But it's always really cool. It's nice having new, fresh faces and faces that we know, like Martin Sheen, for example. That was like a really cool one for me. Grew up watching him. Yeah. And this season we went above and beyond, adding even more known faces, which was so cool for our show.
It's interesting as well because one thing that I've noticed is you look at, the comedy component of wild cards. Because I talked to Giacomo this morning, and he says one thing he really liked about it is he went from doing a lot of these like serious dramas, and on wild cards he gets to kind of work in comedy a little bit, so to speak, right? With like the back and forth of your characters. You've had situations where like you've worked on things that kind of genre bend a little bit, but you've worked on, shows like that were like sitcoms, right? On like YTV or anything like Some Semi Required and like The Ladies Buzz. But he also worked like on something like Wild Cards, which has both of them. So I'm just wondering, what is that like, that genre bending component, working on something that's like a procedural kind of like crime thing, but also comedy? Like, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think it satisfies both what I love as an actor. My character is definitely more on the comedy side, and even when there's dealing with serious things, I bring that light and the comedic timing to the script. Um, so for me, I feel like the show's more of a comedy because that's what my character is bringing to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We don't want to go into big spoilers. What were some things that you were excited about, like for season 2 compared to season 1 of Wild Cards? I know obviously we kind of pick up where we left off, but what did you like the most for this season specifically compared to last season, like storyline wise?
This season, definitely the guest star aspects. I have a best friend that comes to town. You get to see a little bit more, hear more about Max's childhood, her childhood, seeing how she reacts with a best friend, or her relationship with Ricky, which is really cool, and more stuff with her father. And again, her and Ellis's relationship evolving as well.
I feel like whether you've been on like a set one time or thousands of times, there's always going to be kind of learning experiences. You gotten to work on, shows like Riverdale that had like really big kind of fan bases. And I feel like being on shows like that prepares you for a lot of kind of fan interactions with something like Wild Cards and theories and everything. What specifically from shows like Riverdale did you take to something like Wild Card, like mindset preparation or learning experience wise specifically? Like, do you take things from past projects to something like Wild Cards, or are they separate once you wrap them?
I think it's separate once you wrap them, but I think what you take is your experience. You just get better as an actor the more you work and the more you grow. And or I'll be like, oh yeah, I did that on Riverdale, or like that on Riverdale. So you can take elements of that into this. Like, how did I do when I played that on something like this on Riverdale? Okay, so that's how we're gonna play it here, and then you make it your own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's crazy to see that a show like that is just always kind of around specifically. And I feel like you kind of knew about that like while you were on it basically, but like with TikTok and everything. But I'm wondering, like for something like Wild Cards, what has been kind of the coolest thing from season 1? Like from that kind of fan reaction specifically for you? Was it also that like the Riverdale fans kind of tuned in? Like what was that like for you with Wild Card season 1, like the fan reaction?
Yeah, obviously, Riverdale is like a one in a million when it comes to fan interaction. We had like incredible fan base. The Archie comics help with that as well. But I'm so grateful we still have such an amazing fan base on Wild Cards, and it's just so cool to see people loving the work that you're doing and seeing their opinions on the show and fan art and different things like that. And you do see that stuff online and TikTok, especially fan theories and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for people to check out season 2 of Wild Cards in Canada on CBC, and in the States, it's going to be on the CW. Vanessa, so great chatting with you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So nice seeing you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.